Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Two Pros podcast. This is our Christmas special, and very special gentleman today. It's not Joe, it's Mr. Sean Foley. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Sean,
It's
before we get into the golf stuff, let's talk Christmas. What's Christmas like with residents?
Yeah, my boys are 17 and 14, so it's not as special and lovely as when they were little. They've obviously figured out a lot in that time. But yeah, it's good. I've been this year has been nonstop in a good way. The problem with when you do something you love, you don't ever really feel like you're working. But then you look back at your travel schedule and you look back at I think I've had 5 days off since May the 7th.
Come
And so it doesn't mean that I don't have time. I try to get into the gym at least 5 days a week, swimming pool 5 days a week. So it's not like I'm just in nonstop work, but I think I'm ready to have a couple weeks off here for sure. I mean, we'll see how well that does. I always say that, then one of my players will call me not hitting it good, and then I'll end up on the range somewhere. But we're going to go. I think we're going to go skiing in the west coast of Canada, and just the four of us. Quinn is going to university in the fall, so
Wow.
yeah, crazy, right? I was just holding him yesterday. He's like that big now. He's like 6'1", 185 pounds. So yeah, I think it'll be cool just to go the four of us. Whistler, north of Vancouver, is a beautiful place. I used to ski race as a kid, so we used to have time trials up there Saturday and then race Sunday. So I haven't been back for a long time. So I'm looking forward to that. We'll see how
Fucking awesome.
we'll see how these Florida boys do in the cold weather, though.
I think you need that time of year where, like I say, I think for certainly a lot of coaches, it is possibly that little bit of downtime, though, isn't it? And the time to maybe get back with the family and reconnect a little bit and hopefully get ready for another busy season.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that people always talk about like the word balance, and I just don't think that exists. Um, I don't think my favorite meal has ever had balanced ingredients. Um, the idea of balance, like even in the golf swing, when people talk about the importance of balance, well, balance is the consequence of all the forces and torques and everything that have been provided during the whole swing. So it's like if somebody's out of balance and they're finished, telling them to be in balance isn't going to really fix it. There's a reason they're out of balance, and that's because everything that preceded, them being out of balance was them trying to find a way to fit the club into impact, right? So I think to me, it's really about how well you handle the chaos of the imbalance, and the only way to do that is presence.
Very,
So
very true. I think, like I say, it's a calm inside the storm, isn't it?
wherever you're at, you gotta be there. And so I think that's really imperative. But yeah, it's been a good go. There's been a lot of cool things. I'm trying to, I'm very curious, and I'm constantly trying to better myself. And I think as a coach, players will listen to you, but players will also watch you. As a parent, right? You can tell your kids not to yell, and then you start yelling, and they just think you're full of shit. So I think we all start with this checking account, right? We got $1 million trust in this account, and I think every time we act in a way that is different than our message, there's a deduction and a deduction and a deduction. And when you get to the point that in your relationships, whether it's with your friends or your family or your wife or your players, when you get to a point where there's zero left in that bank account, that's kind of the end. And so to me, it's I've always tried from day one, from when I started coaching 30 years ago, to maximize my time on this earth, my influence on the game, um, and just creating all these deep, meaningful, positive relationships with people, and growing what is a fantastic game. It's been the love of our life, and so what does that look like? So 30 years ago, if you had told me that I would be speaking to CEOs of major corporations on leadership and mental health initiatives, I wouldn't know why I would have known that. I would be like, why would I know that? Um, but as you keep peeling back the layers, trying to get to the truth, You never know where you're going to end up. So that's been a cool thing this year. I've done a lot of corporate speaking with some partners in big time corporations. And for me, it's always such a compliment when they say at the end, man, I thought you were just a golf pro.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that
really cool.
maybe
Do you
leads to
keep
it.
the go on, Joe?
It's okay. Well, it kind of, do you find that leads to a lot of what you kind of do within the coaching side of things as well? That I think maybe a lot of certainly amateur golfers over here think they're here just purely for a swing change, as well,
No,
when you're blending not only kind of biomechanical, but the kind of full holistic view to it of bringing the mental health side, the actual physical state as well to it.
yeah, of course. I mean, like a great surgeon is going to try to have his patient avoid surgery, right? So
Very
I,
true.
I, I know a guy is a great orthopedic surgeon, like top level, unbelievable guy, brilliant, fantastic, like just a unique dude, like in everything that he's done. He's been world class, from hockey to played scrum half for Canada in World Cup rugby for 5 years while he's going through med school in Harvard. The guy's just like he's he's out of this world. One of the most impressive people I ever met. So when I meet people like that, I instantly become like a journalist. And so I interview them nonstop. I want to, look at people who are super effective in different areas and understand that the dynamics of that success are going to be the same. The style is different. Obviously, I'm coaching golf, he's doing surgery, but the amount of people that have come to him because they need a knee surgery and he taught them how to stretch their psoas, their iliacus, and their quad, and then they never needed surgery. So he's losing money doing that, but he never got into being a surgeon because I mean he knew he'd make a good living, but he never thought about being rich. No one who becomes great at anything is interested in that. Like all these technocrats in this AI world. Look, they're just trying to win, just like Tiger wanted to win, just like Nicholas wanted to win, just like Annika wanted to win. I don't think it has anything to do with money. I mean, they've been billionaires for decades already. Remember, a billion is 1,000 million. I'm not sure why anyone in the world should ever have that much money in the first place. But that's a whole different discussion. But the point is, these are apex predators just trying to win. And I don't think they really care what the outcome is, as long as they're in the history books as the ones who won. And that's a darker vision of this. So to me, when you're looking at what people do for a living, even if it's different, if you like baggy jeans and I like skinny jeans, then the style of those jeans are different. But the dynamic is that they're both denim. So I think that, my young players, after 20 years on tour, I'm able now to kind of pick who I want to work with. And I want to work with people that I want to invest in. I want to work with people who make the world a better place, and not just their bank account. And, I want to work with people who are into this idea of Kaizen and mastery and this small percentage uptick every day, uh, to make the most out of the time that they have, right, on this planet. I don't think I'm going to care about my bank account or trophies or how many players I coach to win majors with a week left in my life. That's going to be the last thing that I'm going to value. And I think with my young players now, I've made it mandatory that they're all reading. So they're all reading books all the time. And they're reading philosophers, they're reading about Churchill, they're reading about Mandela, they're reading about, these people who had tremendous influences on the planet. And so, all of a sudden you got a kid who he's got a sports psychologist and he's out on the course trying to be positive and believe in himself and all these things that I don't think they're useful. I don't think they matter. I work with this company that's the largest consulting firm in the world, and they did a company wide personality test, and they ranked higher than Harvard graduates on insecure overachievers. Right? So is it when you watch people who practice nonstop, you look at someone like VJ wanted to hit balls every single day. So imagine he wins a major, and the next morning at 8 a.m., he's on the range with his caddy at TPC because he was afraid that if he stopped swinging for one day, he would lose his swing. I mean, if you said, from a neurological standpoint, that's obviously not valid, but it's the fear that's pushed his whole career. And so when I hear people say, the best players in the world have self-belief and confidence, I know all of them. I promise you they don't. They're just very good at golf. And some days they feel good about their game. Some days they don't. It doesn't really change the score that much. Okay. Your score is a function and testament to the skill sets you have. So what are you in putting? What are you in short game? What are you in iron play? What are you in full swing? So I think being an example of the change that you want to see in the world is mandatory and massive. And I think with it, it brings an energy and a frequency. And so, you know, people always say, in a relationship, this relationship has good chemistry. But if you look at the vertical structure of biology, physics is here, chemistry is here, and biology is here. So I think it's much more physics, right? I think it's more energy. What's the word that we use in every single different language? We talk about vibration. That guy's got a good vibe. That's a physics measurement, right? It's not chemistry. So I feel like every time I've improved in my life, everything around me has improved because I'm basically creating the world outside of me from what is happening from within me. And I think when I started to really understand that around 30 or 31, like my life has been so different since then. When I realized that every problem I had, I was pretty much the author of it. When I understood that I was responsible for most of the issues in my life, meaning 99%, once you know who to blame, and that's nobody else but you, you have to look in the mirror and you decide to either change and grow or stay stagnant and be comfortable. And I think that, doing hard things and having discipline in these other aspects, they're just so imperative. So it doesn't really matter. It doesn't, yeah, of course I'm in a room with these CEOs explaining these things, but, in my 30 years, how many of them are going to be remembered when they're gone? So when you're just a golf pro, but for you to be in that room as a golf teacher, what you've had to do has got to be pretty astounding. And you've had to accomplish a lot. And how do you accomplish a lot? You accomplish a lot because every time you fail, you look in the mirror, you accept that you're wrong, and you try to be right. And so being an expert at failure is the only key for me. That's the real key to success is how good am I when I fail? And so failure to me is feedback. So what am I learning from this? It's not some emotional thing that I need to beat myself up upon. I'm not trying to fail. So if I am, there's obviously a misunderstanding that I have. So it's a completely different way that you look at problems. You can look at a problem, if I got this problem, I got this problem, I got this problem, or you can look at it as a problem is just a solution that hasn't been found yet. Completely changes the way you look at it.
Do you think that's something that does maybe separate the great from the good golf coach wise? I think there's certainly seems to be a lot that qualify, go out and coach, and they almost lose that spark to develop and almost get scared of failure. So teach what they know and then don't try and push that forward.
Perfectly said. You couldn't say it better than that. You couldn't. That's perfectly. I'm gonna steal that, bro. I'm gonna take that from you, John.
All
Joe.
yours, sir.
Everything else I've stole anyway. So I remember one day this guy was like, "Oh yeah, you stole that from Mac O'Grady." Somebody said that, and I was like, "Well, I think he stole it from Newton. So we're all stealing from somewhere." I think if we're talking about physics, I think Isaac Newton is the OG, right? But just look at the language. Like you stole something. Oh no, I heard something that I thought could make me revenue and help my players get better. So I totally used it. But yeah, it's a great point. When TrackMan came out, and the first one I bought was like 35 grand. I was $30,000 in debt, and I remember the reaction of like my buddies who coach. They're like, "Oh, that thing's this and that," and I'm like, "Look, you're just telling yourself this to feel better about not having one." What's so expensive? I'm like, well, I just doubled my debt by buying one, but I think if I learn how to use it properly, it will probably help me get out of debt. And you could just see the coaches who wouldn't use it, or 3D, or force plates. The force plates to me are the least significant of those three. It's intimidating, right? It's intimidating. I mean, there's somebody right now in rural Afghanistan who's been taught that his daughter should never go to school. So it's going to be challenging for him to change that idea because one, he's going to stand out in amongst his tribe. And look, tribalism is a real thing. We are all trying to be accepted at a subconscious level. I don't even mean on purpose. This shit is like behind the scenes, right? But you've obviously had to be taught that, because that just makes no sense at all. And so I think when you look at golf instruction, it's the same type of thing. Guy's been teaching. Guy told me, well, I believe in something different than you. And I'm like, well, but I'm not talking about what I believe in. I'm talking about what I know to be true. This is not my belief, right? So, for example, back to dynamics and style, somebody likes chocolate chip cookies, someone likes brownies. What they're both after is the sugar. It's the same dynamic. So I don't want to know what you believe about chipping. Spin is not based on belief. Spin is based on friction. Spin is based on velocity. Spin is based on all that. It's not, we don't need to be like, I believe. It's not about believing. So people, we're looking at this ridiculous shit going on right now with these guys fighting every day over attack angle and chipping, right? Mm-hmm. One, professionally, it's the least significant statistic that's going to lead to greatness. Totally. Okay. Two, there's plenty of times in a round where I will be probably 14 down, and there'll probably be some other times where I'm 2 down. It doesn't the shot tell me what I need to do?
And I think that's exactly where it ties in. I think a lot of coaches now are teaching a number, not that adaptability per scenario.
Yeah. Oh, no, exactly, Joe. But to see the fact that, look, we've got poverty all around the world. We have civil disruptions. We have the precipice of war on a global level, and we're arguing about attack angle and chipping. I mean, like, what are we doing? Like, what are we even doing? They're both great. They both, I could take a lesson from both of these guys, and I will become better at what they want me to do, and then I will be able to utilize it when I need it. But this is nothing to be Joan of Arc about. You know what I mean?
I think you've hit something that I think probably has been seen quite a lot recently. It seems to become more of a YouTube thing, maybe, when people are flicking through. But I think people are very, very loosely using the term fundamental within the golf swing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you've got to do this. And yet you go to, my reference is always kind of the Golf Museum up at St Andrews.
Mm.
You go and look at all the Open champions hand casts and nobody grips it the same.
Mm-mm.
So grip can't be fundamental. Your swing playing angle of attack can't be fundamental. It is all choice by per scenario and the build of your player.
Yeah, and fundamentalism itself is always based on certainty. And I'm not certain about anything. I mean, I'm certain that this is hydrating me. That's obvious. But I'm not certain about, I'm not certain about a million other things. I mean, people's golf swing will match their grip, and then it'll match the tendencies and their movements. Like, when we look at like Adam Scott, right? Like, come on, right? How good is it? But I've
been the prototype for many a year.
But I've mentioned, I met a bunch of, I have all my friends who are chiros and osteos. Quite a few of them have treated them, and they say that his tissue is unlike anything they've ever seen. Adam comes in, he's tight, he's stiff, and after a couple of easy passes, it just like turns into gel again. And so he's got pretty much unlimited movement in his foot, his ankle, his knee, his pelvis, internally, externally, thoracically moves a ton. Shoulders have almost like female levels of external rotation. Of course, it's going to end up looking just so freaking gorgeous because he's got no limitation in movement. And then you look at another player who hits the ball just as well, but is not as pretty. We are going to create our function around our form. Now, I'm not thinking that I don't think there's many different ways. We're not gonna go into that Hall of Fame there in St. Andrews and see many grips like this.
Mm-hmm.
We're not gonna see many grips like this. But basically, when you look at grip, a physiologist taught me this years ago. Was it Mark Bull? I don't know. It might have been Mark Bull. Mark Bull.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Oh, Mark Bull's taught me a ton of stuff. Is how my left arm hangs is probably going to be fairly related to how I grip it. So if you look at Danny Willett, Danny's like this. Okay. If you look at Ben On, he's like this. John Rahm's the same way, so is Colin Morikawa. So there's got to be when I do this neutral, my humerus, there's no rotation. My shoulder humerus is neutral. If I went for a strong grip, I feel all that internal rotation. But when Danny Willett's arm hangs like that, there's no rotation.
No, that's just him. And I think that's a really nice sentiment for, I think, a lot of people to take away, is that there isn't one singular golf swing. I think a lot of people look for it, and I'm sure you'd probably come across it with the kind of regular golfers yourself, that so many people come in and kind of go, oh, well, I want to hit it straight, or I want to swing it like this. And they forget that that's their swing and their ability. And it always worries me when people try and change a natural ability of a player to something else, including kind of fundamentally shot shape.
Yeah, and so the thing is, like, look, if someone, let's look at Michael Kim as a case study, right? Michael and I started at 780th in the world. He's down to 32nd in the world, right? He was #1 amateur in the world at University of California at Berkeley, and then turned pro after being college player of the year, won all the awards, right? So Michael came to see me for a lesson 4 years ago. He'd lost his card. He was thinking about quitting golf. We had a very close friend in common who kind of set it up, and we went from there. And so Michael comes to me upright, bowed, elbow bent, side bending, right? Kind of Victor Hovland-esque, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I had videos from him in college, from his college coach, and he was slightly cupped, big turn, really flat backswing, stood up on his toes, and just hit high slinging draws, right? So I put them up against each other, and he was impressed, one, that I had done the due diligence to get that. But you, as a coach, you should always do that. When you get a player who's been very good and now they're not, always try to find videos from when they're very good, because it's just telling you what you already need to know, especially when you start getting into the motor cortex and you start getting into myelin and protein and neural circuits. That's their swing, right? That's their swing. Okay. So Michael says to me, well, thing I don't get is it doesn't really look bad to me. And I'm like, yeah, well, that's not what the metric is. Right? The metric is you're hitting it out of bounds 10 times around. And I'm talking about starting right, going right, almost coming back and hitting you so far right. And so we spent the next 3 months just standing on the range, get that face open, flat backswing, into out 10 degrees, and we just hit rope hooks for 3 months. Like rope hooks. Because I just had to get that shit out of his system. And I give him
break the habit.
I give him credit. Like, remember, we're dealing, like, when people say old habits die hard, they don't, it's just neurons. Neurons don't die, right? So you watch these tour players, when they hit it left, they get all bothered. It's because they hooked it when they were kids. You know what I mean? Like, they're not on tour now because they hook it all the time. But there was a point when we were junior golfers and we hooked it. We were really good. And then our velocity increased and then we really hooked it. Right. So when you're 9, it's like a little baby draw. The same face and path at another 20 miles an hour was a snap hook. Right. So, I'll give Michael the credit that he did that. And then we started to work after that and basically got to the point that he couldn't hit a block cut.
Yeah.
But still to this day, last week we're at the Grant Thornton. He's like, I've been hitting it left. And I'm like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, nah, but I don't want to hit it left as much. And I'm like, I don't know, man. We're 32nd in the world and we're going to have one miss. I remember where you were with that right miss. I think we'll be fine with the left miss. I think it's your best friend. Right? So you know that we're all going to be our own worst enemy. You just have to know that. We are all our own worst enemy. So when you're coaching, you coach from a place knowing that this player is trying to fuck themselves up and that they're their own worst enemy. And you Justin Rose said it the best about back in the day. He said, he was talking about like the team and me and how he's bowling and we're the bumpers. So the ball's going into the gutter and we just push it back to the middle. So you don't want to get in the creative, like when people said to me, like, so with Rosie, you tell him to do this, this, and this. I was like, yeah, but I was also very open to his insights. I mean, he almost won the British Open when he was 17 years old. He probably has a treasure trove of things, right? And so it isn't a dictatorship. We're kind of bouncing around. So, people will say that Justin always tinkered. Okay, well, tinkering can end up positive or negative. I was just there to ensure that the tinkering could be within the lines of physics. Because he would say things sometimes where I'd be like, oh, that's brilliant. I've never even thought of that, said that way before. So you're in this balance point. But when you start with someone like Michael Kim, you have zero interest in what he thinks about anything because he's completely lost the plot as far as his understanding of technique. So here's a guy hitting it out of bounds. He's getting more and more bowed, and he can't believe with the club that closed that the ball's going right. But is that closed? If my left wrist is like this at impact, I've de-lofted the club and I've aimed the loft right. So of course he had to feel like he was going to do this when he came through the ball. And I remember as soon as he saw that, he did an interview a couple of years later after he started playing well. And he said, look, I went to 10 people and Sean was the only one who told me to get the face open and I was already hitting it right. You have to be able to think outside the box. You have to be able to think like you can't take theory and think that it's completely applicable to the person. So the idea of like being centered and rotating around a single axis in theory is perfect, but what it fails to recognize is human beings have tendons and ligaments and we move side to side in our walking. And so yes, it's a great theory, but I don't know how applicable it is.
Can we talk about the perfect Christmas gift now? See how I'm segueing into this. Probably the best training aid of 2025, the ProSendr. You and David will put it together. Can you just tell the kind of listeners, the viewers, first of all, how they can get it, and second of all, where it...
Well, to be honest with you, we are doing the sale is still on. We've dropped the price from 170 to 99. And look, as a product, it's been amazing. I see every time I go to any range, I see people using it. And of course, the highest selling training aid that's ever been made over a 3-year span has to do with wrist angles. Because think about all the people we coach. They turn pretty good. They shift their weight pretty good, right? They push into the ground pretty good. They're just club face and center of mass of the club is just not in the right place to come down into the ball. So, you got to be able to understand the difference between cause and consequence. So it's like how many times you go on Instagram and it's somebody fixing early extension. Like, well, how many people who early extension is going to come from a couple things. It's going to come from the fact that the people don't have enough mobility in the joint to stay in flexion as they're creating torque, period. Okay. But I've rarely ever seen somebody have that thing coming down super sweet and just start humping it. Like ever. With force plates, I get these people, they'll come to me and I can't get to my left side. And I'm like, well, why would you get to your left side? You're super steep and the club face is wide open. If you get to your left side, you'll shank every shot. So all of a sudden you change their hand path and you change their club face. Now all of a sudden you see the swing catalyst light up completely different. Whereas they've been trying to make their trace go a certain way. The trace is consequential to the forces and torques that you're putting into the grip. How do we not have anything how do we not have anything at this day and age in 2026 where we're talking about building data centers in space and we still have nothing that's not an algorithm to realize what we're actually doing to the golf club with our left hand, with our right hand, with the radial, with the ulnar, and with the torques? Like nothing. So I can measure what my feet are doing, but I can't measure what my hands are doing. And I'm playing the game with my hands.
I think you're spot on there. Like you say, the two bits that are measured are the bits that are connected to something else. Feet to floor and hands to club.
I mean, look, man, I've seen when you get into fundamentalism and you get into certainty, right? Like the other thing too that people need to realize is the term GRF stands for ground reaction force. Okay. So in the words of Mark Bull, force precedes motion. Intention precedes force. Well, desire precedes intention. So that's kind of the equation that you're on. So it is, the word is reaction. It's reacting to something. That's a consequential thing. I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm not saying that all the stuff I've learned about it is not imperative. But the last time I had an amateur golfer come to me and I fixed their footwork was never, ever, like ever, like not ever, if not ever. Actually, to be honest with you, if you took most of your 18 handicaps and you made them stand with, you made them stand with one foot behind the other, they actually end up hitting better golf shots anyways. So it's like, here's what I know I need to do. I know I need to get my wrist at least neutral for the most part. That's 9 out of 10 people. I know that I definitely need to turn. And then I know that I need to have enough time in my hand path to generate speed. So for me, you couldn't really tell a player to increase width and they would get worse. Right? Like, how hard is it going to be to hit a ball like this, right? So,
Oh,
you
seen one or
know,
two.
yeah, the only time I ever want to be like this is when I got to hit a ball that I could hit over you from 2 feet away, right? Not when I need to smash one out there. So it's not rocket, it's science, but it's not rocket science. And I think after you do something for 30 years, I don't think you end up knowing what's right, but you totally know what's wrong. And if I can avoid people from doing the wrong thing, the right things will show up in their own time. But if we can avoid doing anything wrong to begin with, we're in a safer place.
So I love that from the coaching side of things, that you do see that, I think, with players quite a lot. It seems a common misunderstanding that so many players want to do the perfect thing, and yet the perfect thing doesn't exist for them. But
Well,
10
let's,
really bad do.
but just look though, right? Like, let's look at it right now. Okay. So in the last few years, we've had the three best ball strikers would be Rom,
Mm.
who you teaching that to?
Yeah.
It's specific to him, isn't it?
And you know what? It's a good thing he's 6'4", 250 pounds, because if he was my size, he wouldn't even been on the Canadian tour. Okay. So shortest hand path in golf, obviously has to get the center of mass behind him, right? All this built around the fact that he was born with a club foot,
Mm.
right? So how are you going to turn if you don't have toes? Then we have Victor Hovland. Who are you teaching that to?
Mm.
And then we have Scotty Scheffler. Who are you teaching that to?
Mm.
So
And I think
we got one whose pelvis goes almost not forward at all, goes backwards. We've got one whose pelvis literally slides outside of the Zoom screen. And then what's the major differences? Like, Scotty's quite upright, face is maybe slightly open, comes down like quite in front of him. So of course he's not going to keep his butt on the wall and try to rotate. He just slice it. So he's sliding forward that long to make sure that he doesn't get outside the ball. Whereas if you look at, Victor or Joaquin or Cameron come down, and that Sergio, that sweet spot gets so flat to the ground and behind them. Well, if they had any slide, they'd barrel shank every single shot. So of course they're going to be the most open.
mm,
I think you can make somebody who's a little steeper get it a little better, and in the sense they won't extend as much. But people like that, like I've got some young kids right now who have real potential, and they are both all-star athletes in two other sports. And you should see these kids hit balls. Their movement is purely athleticism. It's
mm,
pure athleticism. So when you see them go to the top and change direction so early and lay the club down and jump out of the ground and release, it's like, that's just a pure athlete. If that kid was boxing, playing football, playing ice hockey, he's going to do things that people can't do because he's a pure athlete. So the problem is, using Rory, I was at this golf school, and one of the guys that coaches for me had this lady, and she was a pretty good player, probably like a 10 handicap. And he had Rory and her next to each other, showing the separation in transition. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, like Justin Rose is one of the best players of his generation and one of the best players I will ever see in my life. And he called Rory McIlroy a unicorn because he was what is a unicorn? It's a mythical figure. So
mm.
you're standing next to this guy on the tee, I'll never forget it. Rory, DJ, and Rosie, and Rory was up. He three putted the hole before, and those two boys. This is when Rosie was really long as well.
Mm.
They smashed it down there, and then he comes up at 5'9" and hits it 30 by them. That's unicorn.
Yeah,
You know,
that's. I think that we use the idyllics a little bit too often, don't we? And I'm sure it'll be the same for yourself to kind of keep a catalogue of players that do things really well that are also normal people. You can't be comparing somebody that's in the gym 7 days a week hitting 1,000 balls a day to
oh
Terry that
sure.
works in accounts and plays on a Sunday.
No, exactly. And I think the other thing that people don't, they don't see because they're not out there. If I need to find Xander, Rory, Scotty, Sam Burns, you name it, Victor, if I need to find them and I can't find them anywhere, I guarantee they're in the gym.
Yeah.
And they've got world-class experts helping them with it. And that's their diet, that's their sleep cycles, that's every single thing, right? I mean, these are F1 cars, really, is what they are. So
Mm.
it's like you don't need to be an F1 car, but if you could be if you could be a M3 competition, that'll work, right?
Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
just
definitely.
get better in what you
So
do.
look, life is just about being, life is about being better than you were. That probably means in most cases you won't be the best, but if you can look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, you know what, I did everything I could to maximize my time on this planet. That's the last thing I want to say to myself. That would be fine. How I'm perceived in the eyes of others, who cares? I mean, there's nothing I can do about that. That's out of my control. So I think that as long as I've done this, as much as I've spoke like this, and as many people that I speak to on a given day, most of us are probably given advice that we need to hear the most. So I think that coaching for me has almost been just this incredible therapy because over time I've literally reframed how I think about things because one, I need to be an example of it. And two, the more you say something to yourself, the more likely you are to turn into it.
There's a great
What's,
deal of wisdom
what's,
there.
before we let you, Sean, can you tell us, Sean, your favourite Tiger story? We can't leave the great man out of this conversation.
I mean, there's so many, and but there's so many, and then they're also for different reasons. But like something simple again, like when you look at greatness like that and you think there's some secret, there really isn't, right? He loves golf as much as anyone I have ever met in my life. Uh, I think that's part of it. I think, when we see a player like Tiger or a player like Messi or Rory or whoever who work so hard, right? They love it. So once again, you're not really working. Like you wouldn't want to be anywhere else. You'd almost have to work to probably sit on the couch at home and relax. To be honest with you, I'm not good at that. Not that I think you need to be good at that, but I think probably in 2012, July the 2nd. It's been a minute, but I kind of remember it going this way. So I would drive down from Orlando every Monday, every Friday. So I stayed with him in his guest house for a while, and then I stopped staying in the guest house. So it's about it's nearly 3 hours both ways. So I do that every Monday, every Friday, and um, I never ever got to the range before him, even if I was 20 minutes early. He was a minimum of 30 minutes early every day. So if he said 7, that meant 6:30. Okay. I'm telling you, 80% of the PGA Tour players haven't been on time in 10 years, not even been on time once. Okay. So let's get away from like he was born from the fuck planet of Krypton and he's just, no, let's just look at, let's look at this. The average player on tour is giving Tiger 50 minutes extra a day. So he's already better than you, and you're allowing him to have more time than you. All right. And then you got to question when people are late all the time. It's like, I've never been on time to the dentist ever. And I don't think I ever will be. I'm always on time to the pub when I got to meet my mates. I mean, I'm early. So you're late to shit because you don't want to be there. That's part of it. And then you just have so many things going on that you can't be on time. Because I'm going to promise you that the lack of noise in greatness is a real thing. There's just really not a lot going on. I mean, how many goats have any idea about Gaza or about Ukraine or about, no, it's like, right there. So I get down there 7:30 in the morning. He's in the front of the range. I grab my TrackMan. I walk over, give him a hug. And so our thing is, I don't. You can tell I like to talk. So he likes to listen to me talk, but not when he's practicing. So the rule is, you don't say a word until I speak to you. I'm like, all right, cool. So we were sitting there, and I remember one time I was with him, and we're talking and talking, and he was confronting me with his energy, but he wasn't saying anything. But I could tell he was kind of getting pissed. And so we went and had lunch. And I was like, hey, bro, what happened on the range there? He's like, fuck, you don't stop talking, bro. Like, and I love listening to you, but I got to work. And I'm like, oh, well, bro, then tell me. Like, don't just sit there and look at me like I'm some asshole. Like, just say, Sean, you talk a shitload. It's not the first time I've ever heard it, Tiger. And I will shut up and we'll be good. And I need to work on it anyway. So there we go. So
Oh, man.
It's so hot out. It's like 105. It's already 100-degree humidity. It's July in Florida is hotter than Africa. Okay, and he's got his rain gear on, and so I pull up, give him a hug, sit down. I put the TrackMan on. He's hitting balls, and this guy sweats really quick, like as fast as anybody, and so it's just dripping off his hat. I'm trying to figure out what are we doing right now. And I said to him, I said, Tiger. And he's like, yeah, bro. I said, what are you doing with the rain gear on? He's like, well, I hate rain gear. I was like, well, who likes rain gear? And I said, so I don't get it. He goes, well, the British Open's in 2 weeks. I most likely will have to use rain gear. So what I want to do is get on the TrackMan and find out what the rain gear is doing to my swing. Oh, fucking brilliant. Oh, sounds great. I'm like, duh. So by the time he gets to 6 iron, he's lost like about 2 miles an hour. He's a touch steeper, and the face is 2 degrees more open than normal. And so I said, "Hey, bud," he's like, "Yeah, that's what I thought." And so he starts hitting it. The numbers come back. I'm kind of noticed he's doing something with his left heel, little leg action. He says, "Remind me when we get to the British Open that when I get to like my mid irons and my longer clubs, I have to unweight my front foot to give me more time in the backswing." I'm like, "You got it, bro. No problem." Get in the car, driving home. I'm like, that was so interesting. Get to the British Open, have 3 other players there. They're all teeing off within 30 minutes of each other. It's absolutely raining sideways, as you guys know so well. And what are they bitching about? They can't swing in
Playing
the
the
rain.
rain.
There you go.
Mate,
Wow.
that'd be awesome. That's so cool.
People always think it's going to be like something crazy, like he just 1 iron out of a bunker. He did that probably too, but always 30 minutes early, always in pure concentration, and then doing the things that he didn't like, knowing that I have a French bulldog who thinks that she's a pit bull, I think. Um, so
Sean, we'll let you get out of here, mate. Honestly, you've been amazing. We've done this so many times. I could listen to you, which is so generous and take your
yeah, no,
time. And
no.
just wish you and your family all the best for Christmas. And thank you so much again.
All right, boys. We'll maybe see you next year at the Open, maybe.
Absolutely.
Oh,
We'd
where is it
love to
anyway?
get together at the Open. Birkdale.
Oh, Birkdale.
Oh, nice local one as it happens, really.
Yeah.
That's the town that Tommy. I stayed with Tommy Fleetwood's. I stayed in Tommy's cousin's house. The last time it was at Birkdale, and so I get in this house. I meet this lady. She's nice. I say, hey, hey, hey. And then I go into the kitchen to get a pint, and I open up the fridge, and then I look on the wall, and there's this Tommy Fleetwood calendar, like really creepy, like it was weird. I was like, "What is up with the top?" It ended up being his favorite cousin. So there you go. So a calendar of Tommy Fleetwood. Every morning, I had to look at Tommy Fleetwood, who I actually love. Tommy Fleetwood. That is probably the happiest I've ever been for someone I don't coach. Was this year watching Tommy Fleetwood get his roses, because the guy is top 10 in kindness, top 10 in skill, top 10 in work ethic.
Mm,
What a guy.
That's great to
yeah,
hear.
totally agree. Yeah. Sean, you're a superstar. You're
All right,
ace,
boys.
mate. I'm an inspiration. I can listen to you all day.
All right, be well, boys. Have a great one.
And you.
Thanks, Joe.